Welcome. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas, and you are watching Straight Talk. And luckily, it's Straight Talk, not just with Scott, but it's Straight Talk with Scott and Trish, who will be here in just one moment. Um, there she is. Hey, Trish. We both were running a little bit late, so here we go. Maybe we were running late because it's one of those topics that's juicy and might bring up some personal issues. I just want to welcome everybody, and I want to acknowledge those of you who are watching the replay because the vast majority of people who come to my shows, our shows, are watching the replay. So thank you for joining us. But for any of you that are watching live, you're welcome to come into our Zoom webinar room and join us. We are going to have a couple of people come in and talk about their experiences with dealing with exes, our topic for the night. And if you see Trish and I doing this, like we're looking down, I try to put the spotlight on whoever's talking, but if you see us looking down, it's not that we're texting one of our exes or someone, it's that we're checking to see what's happening on Facebook, or we're posting in different places. So with no further ado, I am going to put the spotlight on my partner in this show, Trish, to ask you how you want to start this dynamic conversation, because I know you handle your exes really quite beautifully, and you had a big success, which kind of helped me think about this show. So take it away, Trish.
Recently, I had an experience with an ex that I love how you like to touch all the sensitive spots, Scott. You're like, ooh, well, that's kind of sensitive. All right. I'll tell you a story for everyone watching, and please type in down below some of your experiences as well. And so I haven't spoken to this ex in almost a year, and we had a really long, beautiful relationship, and it didn't kind of explode. It just exploded at the end, and we haven't spoken in a long time. And don't get me wrong, I've thought about reaching out, and they were very clear not to reach out, that this was not a thing that they wanted, and I didn't. Recently, a friend of mine passed, and at the vigil, we saw each other for the first time, I guess not in person, but virtually in person. And there was a couple, maybe we exchanged over the course of the next month, 8 messages. So I go down the city. It's kind of one of my my second trip out into the world. And I get this, I'm seeing a couple people, and I get this this feeling like it'd be kind of funny if I saw my previous partner today. And I didn't think anything about it, but I went to this restaurant that I had wanted to go to. It's in a food mall. And the place that I wanted to go wasn't open, but the other place that I really love was also. And I was like, oh, great. So I'm sitting there, and I order my food, and I go sit down outside to, social distance and be good. And I get up to check on my food, and I look over and I see this person, and I'm like, oh, that looks like a shirt, and he's kind of moving in this particular way. I don't know if that's whatever. Like, I'm not going to make a story. I'm just going to go sit back down and chill. Well, the universe or God or whoever you want to whispers in my ear and says, turn around, as I'm sitting outside. And I turn around, and my ex is getting into his car. I had no idea that was his car. He'd gotten a new one. And of course, me being me, I'm like, I wave like a 13-year-old girl. I'm like, hi. And he's like, oh, Trish, you. And he comes over, and I take my mask off because it just felt like the appropriate time. He's like, your mask gave it away. I was like, oh, thanks. And we had this really amazing conversation. And what happened is that I was able to really drop into compassion and empathy with this person, with this man that I had been in love with for over 5 years. And I think what it stemmed from is me practicing love, compassion, and forgiveness for myself. It's been, you know, some time now that I've been practicing, and I've been really practicing with Love Coach Academy and with Scott. And so I think one way to work with or step up to your ex is really with compassion and understanding that this person is someone that you love and that you fell in love with. And just because there were things that didn't quite match in intimate relational space, it doesn't mean that makes them a bad person, even if they made mistakes that are outside your value system. I mean, I'm certain that you've made mistakes out of your value system. I have. And it really is creating a level of a level playing field of compassion for yourself and for others. There's some, I mean, it's about honoring their boundaries and yours, and it's about honoring where they're at and where you're at. I know I have a handful of exes. I'm sure Scott has a handful of exes, and maybe you do too. And you're sitting here like, that person, and you're like, oh, I did something bad. I mean, there's ways to deal with it, and it's not showing up in shame, but showing up in choosing love, right? It's showing up in, what did Mandolin say yesterday? It was such a beautiful piece. I have a note somewhere about it that I'll find.
What she said. Hey, now go down.
Love is an antidote. Right? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Love as the antidote. And if you're passing your words through your heart and passing it really through that place, like, I mean, you wanted connection with this person, right? And there was love there for so long. So that's just one piece of my experience. I'm curious, Scott, how you deal with your exes. And is it, wait, I do have a question. Is it like right off the bat, you're like, I'm just going to be the king of compassion right now? Or is there some stuff there that's, like, fiery?
No, sorry, my dog is barking and I'm not even sure why, and there's somebody else in the house, so I apologize. Okay, quiet down, pal. So certainly as a rule, I really like to stay close to my exes. And generally speaking, I do. I can say that several of my best friends long term are women that I was involved with at one time or another. And so generally speaking, that's what I want. That's what I like. It's what feels best. It's like as I'm more spiritual or even more compassionate, it just feels better to be in connection with someone that you've loved and that you've shared intimacy with than to be in separation. That being said, I've experienced it all. Emily, who I was with for almost 5 years, she still lives next door. Her mother lived in my house up until a few weeks ago, and we're still very dear friends. On the other hand, the woman that I left my relationship with Emily to be with, once our relationship ended, she completely ghosted me. And it was interesting what happened because we connected a little bit, and then we did kind of a Zoom chat where she really wanted me to apologize for my stuff, and I did. I kind of thought, okay, I'll go first. I'll apologize for my stuff, my mistakes. And she was like, gracious, thank you very much. And the next thing I knew, I was blocked on Facebook, and I haven't heard from her since. And I've sent like some really lovely, wonderful, loving Scott messages. And so that's really been shocking and hurtful. It hurts. And also kind of reinforces why she's not the right person for me to be with, right? So, and because I've actually, it's not like I've stalked her or anything like that. I've maybe once every 2 or 3 months, I'll send like a really loving message. Hey, let's catch up. I want to know how you're doing. How are the kids? What's going on? And zip, not a zippo. So, I've been on. So there it is. My two most recent relationships. One very beautiful, very connective. Emily and I probably text each other almost every day. We see each other. We still, go for walks. She, has actually done some wonderful things for me recently. I've done wonderful things for her. So that feels a lot better than being ghosted. You know? So I'm kind of, yeah. And
Scott,
I,
that's really hard.
yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I think hey, everybody, I'm about to get some empathy.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. All right, all right, all right. Yeah. I mean, I think that, or as I know you and get to know you more deeply, I know that you are a really loving, compassionate person, and you see the beauty in all people as they are in the moment, and not you don't spend a lot of time thinking about someone's potential, but you really see the beauty of the human experience that they're living in. And I know that connection is one of your top values as well. Like it's the highest piece on your top value, and it's really hard to disconnect, or not even disconnected, but to be so far removed from someone that you love so deeply. And is it safe to say that you give your heart really fully, like when you do, that you're an in? I want to talk about this a little later, but I want to talk about the word in, like being in, and you choose, and you're yes, you're an F yes. Can I say that word on this show?
Yeah, sure. What the heck? I mean, no, don't get kicked off for it. I don't think so.
You're an F yes, and I'll just keep it PG-ish. And I know that about you, so I know that when someone chooses to not find compassion or empathy and be in that space to give or receive that level of intimacy, I know how hard that hurts for you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So thank you. One of the things as I was thinking about this topic that we just decided we were going to do this morning, um, I want to acknowledge that some of us, when we love, we always love. Like the women I've loved, even the ones where it ended badly, absolutely, I still love them. Absolutely. When I think of them, even if I'm, like, oh yeah, but she can be this way or that way, um, my overall experience is I still love them and will love them for the rest of my life. Other people are like, they're beyond monogamous. They're like, I can only love one person at a time. So if I'm in a relationship with Susan, I cannot still have love for Sally. Or conversely, if you're in a relationship with me, you can't still love your ex-wife or your ex-girlfriend. And I want to acknowledge I try not to be judgmental, but I do have a certain amount of judgment about that way of thinking. But I also, the Love Coach Scott part of me recognizes, okay, well, those people have a very strong value for devotion and dedication. And so their strategy to prove their devotion and dedication is to only be, monofocused on one person at a time. Um, and again, that's really different from the way I think, but I'm working on stretching into understanding people who think the other way. And I'm kind of curious, that that difference, how that's played out in maybe some of your relationships or your way of staying connected or not staying connected.
I think that I'm from a person who's played that whole field of being like, we'll call it hyper monogamous, just to give it a crunchy label that people can argue about later. Um, there's, you know, there's different levels of love, the 5 levels of love, but there's also this way of communicating in. I've been in a place where I felt so insecure with my love for someone that that I didn't trust them or trust myself to hold my boundaries, to really be okay with who they were interacting with, because it hadn't been that way, right? It hadn't been I hadn't been able to like lean into trusting them because there were some things like some intimacy thresholds or some issues that we had run into that never got fully resolved. And I think that I want to use the C word, codependency. There's an aspect of this C, like a long letter C word, that, you know, that it's not to pathologize anything, but there's this level of, you know, when I love someone, I want them to be happy. And there's an aspect of changing them or changing myself that is bound to happen, but it's not going to be that healthy in a relationship, is it? Like, I mean, of course you're going to love your wife. Of course you're going to love Emily. Of course you're going to love every person that you've ever spent quality time with. And is it okay for me to sit back and be like, shame you or be really like offended? Like, oh my God, I can't believe you still love your wife or Emily, who's really freaking lovable. I mean, like, how can you not love these people? And it really looks like, well, it actually is really looking at yourself. Like, why am I so triggered or tripped by this person? What is it in me that's insecure about that relationship? And maybe it's a fantasy that I've created, a story that I've created about the level of intimacy that I want with you, that I'm either holding back from allowing myself. That's usually what it is, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's often it's insecurity. It's just scarcity thinking. There's only so much love in the world. Also, maybe the ego wanting to be special. I certainly experienced that with my most, recent lover, who was very jealous of him, extremely jealous of Emily. Um, and there was, I think, you know, this desire to want to be loved like I loved no other, right? And I can understand that. I mean, I can find that inside of myself, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly find inside myself that part that I want you or whoever I'm with. I say you, I mean, whoever my next person would be, or any person I would be with, to love me more than you've ever loved before. Of course,
You mean to be chosen as the one?
I want to be the one that everybody else has been preparing you for me. So I can find that fantasy inside of myself. Okay. Emphasis on the word fantasy, right? And then I can also find the kind of more love coach Scott part of me. It's like, hey, every relationship is unique.
Mm-hmm.
Every form of love is unique. And it's all beautiful. And it is all part of our evolution. And we don't have to be competitive about it. And definitely, especially in relationship, when we get competitive, when we go into competition or comparison, it always creates separation. It just never makes things better. So
Can we just be really fair here and honest that Emily would be a really, really hard act to follow? I mean, like really hard. And what I also thought when we were talking about the one, and I was like, there's people who dream and know that the Dalai Lama is the one when when he's a child. And I was like, wait a second. I want to be the one. Someone's dreaming about me right now. They knew the last 33 years. They've known that I am the one.
And it's a beautiful fantasy, and it's very romantic. It's extremely romantic, and so many of our movies really propagate that. I mean, come on, all the fairy tales, you find your prince, you find your princess, and they lived happily ever after. And I just want to say to people, it's a lie. It's a terrible, terrible lie to tell children, and they lived happily ever after.
I will never let my children watch Disney.
Oh, well,
that is the worst.
I think Disney's upgraded. I think they've gotten a little bit better. I don't know. Have they gotten better on that?
I don't know. I don't watch that kind of thing.
But what's true is it's not that they lived happily ever after. It's that they got coaching from Scott and Trish. That's how every book should end. And as things got difficult, they continued to get coaching from Love Coach Academy.
Right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And just to like bring it into a little, so that was a year ago, right? This experience that I just shared. And there's another experience that I had that I would love to be able to show up in empathy and compassion with my most previous ex, my most previous partner. And I'd love to be able to share empathy, compassion, and understanding with him. And he's also asked me not to talk to him. So I'm like, oh, and it's for me, it's where I want to show up and be like, hey, I love you. And I want to hear where you're at. And it's also about me respecting where he's at and what he wants to share. And it really does look like that. So um today Scott and I were playing around with words and sort of acronyming things. And I created an acronym around being a catch. And I've been sitting here thinking about it for the last like, I don't know, hour or two. I'm like, what is, if you're a catch, what would that be? And I want to, for me, part of the qualities of people that I manifest or I want to date are people who have C, who are caring, A, attentive, T, trustworthy, C, compassionate, H, honest. Scott, you're a catch.
That made my day when she sent that to me, I must say. Today was one of those
Aw.
days that literally I've been going since about 7:30 this morning. I did 3 really hard sessions in a row. And then I took a little break. And but during the sessions that came to me, and it was like, oh boy,
Aw.
they sent her a bitmoji of me like swooning, like going up into the heavens with little hearts, because look, you know what? We all want to be a catch. You remember Fiddler on the Roof? Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match, catch me a catch. So it's right there.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah. Um, so, we do. We want to be a great catch.
Yeah.
Um, we want to be chosen. We want to be chosen. And I do understand, again, compassion for people who want to be the one, who want to be chosen. And we all want to be chosen.
Yeah.
It feels so good to be chosen. And there's always that fear that your second choice or third choice or someone else is going to be chosen over you. And so there's the fear, right?
I'd also just like to bring up a point that to be chosen means that you have to choose yourself first. And I think that a lot of as a person who's working on their codependent behaviors, I'm just gonna own that, and someone who's also played out the part of I want to be chosen as the only one. It's because I was literally abandoning my own wants and needs. So the level of compassion that I could show with my ex is the level of compassion that I've developed for myself recently. So it really is like working on this internal person being able to create a larger capacity to do that for others and owning my mistakes, right? So it's not like of course I want to be the one. And if I really want to be super fucking honest, I can censor.
Does that indicate you haven't been honest up until this point?
No, of course I no. I mean, if I want to be like extra honest, on a platform where
you're graduating from honesty into profound transparency.
Profane honesty.
So profound.
Profane. It's profane honesty, Scott. If I want to transform into profane honesty, there's like regular honesty, and then there's just honesty. If I really want to be raw and vulnerable on this show right now, it's owning that I've made some serious mistakes, and it's not all their fault. Of course, you want to like throw the blame in someone's direction or take it all and self-flagellate, but is that really helping either of us? Is that helping you who's watching? Like, I mean, is that really that helpful for the world? For your next partner? Is that helping your previous partner heal? Is your self-flagellation or your, lack of self-love, or are they moving on? I mean,
I want to acknowledge our mutual friend Robert Silver watching from the Hawaii.
Hi, Robert.
And want to welcome our other friends watching. It's so funny. Facebook tells us some of the people watching, but not everybody. So, anyway, hello or aloha. What you said is really actually so important. Ultimately, it really does come down to learning to love ourselves. And they don't teach us that in school. They really don't. It's all again, the fairy stories are, the princess waiting for the prince, and then the prince proving himself to the princess. Um, and it's all externally oriented. It's all about and then it graduates to codependence. To prove my love for you, I will slay the dragon, right? Um, if you love me, you will slay the dragon, right? Um, and which is really the seeds of codependence. And as I work with couples, and I've been in enmeshed codependent relationship before, so it happens to the best of us. Um, but it actually starts with a lot of that romantic fantasy, right? If he really loves me, he will walk backwards through the snow barefoot. If she really loves me, she'll never even think about another man. Whatever it is, we all have our fantasies of what true love really means. And honestly, as a coach who's worked with hundreds and hundreds of couples now, true, mature love is radical acceptance. Radical acceptance that this is who she is. This is what he likes to do. This is what she looks like without makeup. This is what he looks like, you know, in whatever situation. um,
Without his hair done.
yeah, without my hair, yeah, right. This is what it looks like when he's bald, right?
Yeah.
When I take off my wig, it's actually really a wig. Imagine if I took the wig off.
Really?
No.
Wait, can we do a whole show on this?
My
A
hair.
big reveal. We'll do a reveal.
It was all a wig. um, but yeah, that is what true love really is in a mature way. It's radical acceptance. And that doesn't mean radical acceptance of hurtful behavior. It doesn't mean we aren't growing and evolving, but actually, real growth, real evolution is built on a foundation of acceptance. And when you get down to it, don't we all really want to be loved for who we are? Not just because we make money or because we're beautiful or because we're compassionate or because we're whatever it is. We want to be loved for who we really are. You know? And that tends to happen in platonic friendships more often because there's less romantic projected fantasy in platonic friendship, and there's less expectation in platonic friendship, and there tends to be more honesty. It's safer to be honest with your buddy than the girl you're trying to impress or the dude you want to catch, right? So I've said a few things. I'd love to hear what Trish has to say about all of that. You're muted or something. I'm not hearing you. All of a sudden, I'm not hearing you. Is that while Trish is figuring that out, I will now. Oh my gosh, there she goes. We lost her altogether. She will be back. I can count on that. Hey, we want to hear from some of you. And if you're interested in coming into our webinar room, and I want to welcome Lorna, Lisa, Kim, Susan, all of whom are in my watch party room. If any of you have questions, please pop your questions in and I'll kind of respond, or let us know about challenges you've had with exes in your life. And I'm going to bring Trish back in. And I'm going to give you the Zoom room number. If you go to zoom.us, and we are in room number 9798968857. I'll say that again if you want to write it down. We're in Zoom room 9798968857. Come join us. We'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear from Trish.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, there's a lot of things that came up about that. And yes, we all want, I want to be accepted. And it's not about me. It's about you want to be accepted too. And that's I think where we get a little like, oh, this person. Speaking of acceptance, I've been playing this game on some dating apps, which is the make or break game. And I am like radical honesty and make or break. So I like to play this game where I'm like, ooh, I wonder if I can scare them away with how radically honest and how absolutely strange I am. Like, what are your weird and I'm kind of throwing this out at you, Scott. Like, what are your weird, quirky things that you think I should know about as a friend? Oh, you're like, whoa, put me on the spot. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
No, sorry, automatically muted. So just to be clear, because we hadn't talked about this, are we doing this game right now in real life?
Do you want to do this game?
I'm game.
Okay. So in this, you know, when you're in a relationship and I mean, after the relationship's completed itself and you're like, wow, I really wish that I would have asked some questions.
Right. Like, what's your relationship to cocaine?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I really, yeah, exactly. No, I mean, for real, I'm like, oh, so tell me about your relationship with your parents. Tell me about your.
Absolutely. Actually, I really do always counsel, and this is serious, sincere. If you're single and you're dating, very gently ask, hey, tell me about your previous relationships. And if you get one story after another about how he was such a creep or, oh my God, such a bitch, not a good sign. That's what they're going to be saying about you in a year or whatever it is. But they go, you know, I love my ex. I do. We grew apart. We want different things. But you know what? I'll always love him. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. Oh my God, you're quiet again. Yeah, yeah. It's some weird thing. Try
No.
muting and unmuting.
No.
Now I can hear you briefly, quietly.
Quietly.
I hear you, but I've got my volume up all the way. Oh, and your internet just went out. You froze, and you're back.
Ah, frustrating. Okay. You know, I mean, it's questioning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. It's questioning how many ex-girlfriends have been crazy in your life.
Okay. So.
No. I mean, if you meet someone and they're like, the last 5 ex-girlfriends have been pretty crazy, I'm like, before maybe younger Trish would have been like, oh, okay, whatever. But now I'm like, what happened? Tell me more. Hi, Jay.
Hey, good to see you. All right, so are we playing the game?
Yeah, totally. You can go first. You can ask me a question first if you want.
Are you capable of deepening your love for a man when he's all in?
God, I thought you would start off with an easier question.
Well, I mean, and you froze.
Can I have your references?
Huh?
Can I have your references?
Oh, I think you're actually a little.
Yeah, totally.
Enjoy this moment. Trish is
Wow.
all tongue-tied. So while she contemplates her answer, let me go into Love Coach Scott mode for a moment. All of us have an intimacy threshold. All of us do. And so one of the things that's interesting to notice is that when we, as human beings, when couples reach a new level of intimacy, it might be emotional intimacy, it might be sexual intimacy, it might be a deeper level of merging. Almost always, one or both people will freak out the next day. It's almost like a hangover effect, because it's like, oh my God, I went closer than I meant to. I hit my intimacy threshold. And if people aren't prepared to manage that intimacy threshold, then they'll create a fight and they'll have an argument. because the ego is like, hey, what the hell are you doing? We've agreed we're not going to ever open our heart like that again. Remember that kid that broke your heart in 7th grade, and you promised you're never going to trust another man again? What are you doing? It's kind of like that, right? So, in asking the question to Trish, um, I'm just acknowledging that sometimes when someone really is all in, we get scared and we pull back. So it's perfectly human. I've done it. I've been on both sides of that one.
I have questions now, which is a really good. I just want to own that I'm deflecting.
Yeah, but
My
I bought you some time, kiddo.
thanks.
So
I know. I know.
I already bought you some time. So
Um, I think that the answer is yes. I want to say that the answer is yes.
did you notice how her voice cracked? And the answer is yes.
And I'm curious what all in for one person looks like, because all in for me looks something kind of specific, and all in, I don't know what all in exactly means. And it comes back to the thing that I wanted to say earlier is like, oh, you're in, like, you're a yes, and I trust that you are going to honor your own boundaries.
Right. Right.
And so there is this place of like, yeah, I'm all in, and you might be all in, and I'm curious if all in means that you're overpowering, and
Fair enough.
so there's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, can I lean into that? Well, what does that mean? What does the level of commitment, or yeah, what does that mean to you? So
Okay, so let's for purposes of this conversation in question, all in means I'm not going to play games. I'm not going to pretend that I'm dating other people or that I'm not interested. I'm going to be totally honest and transparent that I really like you. I'm all in to really see, hey, what's here? Without, we're not projecting marriage or expectation of, but just all in meaning really doing one's best to be fully honest, transparent, and really like, hey, I really am curious what we have here, what's going on here, what's possible. How's that for all in? Is that safe enough all in?
yeah, that's a great all in. That's what I would, yes. I mean, that's a good all in. And it really is being honest about where you're at. Um, have you ever dated someone, maybe you, Scott, but everybody out in the universe watching right now, is that, have you ever dated someone and you thought it was a whole lot more intimate than you thought it was more intimate than they did, and then you find out a little later they're like, oh, what is that? I'm like, oh, and I'm like, oh, well, that was interesting. Like, how did that miscommunication just miss the whole, like, how did that not land? And it really is that place of being all in, is a level of radical honesty with yourself and with the other person.
There's a wonderful kind of, so like a love coach trick or tool for that. When dating, whatever new step you either have made or are going to make, talk about what that means to you. What does it mean that we're going to have our first date? What does it mean that we're going to spend the night together? What does it mean that we did spend the night together? Better to talk about it before rather than after. But to really talk about, what does this mean to you? What is sleeping together mean to you? What is having a really romantic kiss mean to you? What's that mean? And talking about that. A long time ago, when I was producing television for teenagers, one of the TV shows we did was a show called Choices, the Mating Game. And it was very heavily funded, and it was all about adolescent pregnancy prevention. And we created a show that we took into over 100 high schools throughout California, and really perfected the show. And then we made a TV show out of it. And the thesis statement of the whole show was, if you're not old enough to talk about it, you're not old enough to do it. Like we really came after talking to adolescent pregnancy prevention specialists that that's the big thing. It's like most kids do it before they talk about it. You know, if they're under the influence of alcohol or drugs or their own hormones, right? But you got to be able to talk about it. And so it's interesting. I did that show a long time ago. But working with adults, I see the same thing. Adults that are single jump into connection and relationship and they don't talk about it. And the end result is what Trish was just talking about. To one person, we are at a whole new level of intimacy. This means now that we're monogamous, we're only going to see each other, and we're going to text each other every day. And to somebody else, it means, wow, we had a great night. It was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. Those are two very different interpretations of the same event.
Yeah. There's a level, again, of radical honesty with oneself, right? And that's really where it comes down to, is like, where are you at? And can you share with the other person where you're at? I love, what meaning is it? I think that's really, what does going on a date mean for you? I mean, I have been on some really interesting dates in the years of my life, and I'm certain that you have, Scott. That sometimes people will come back after one date and be like, hey, you, we're here. And I'm like, whoa, we had dinner. And I'm not sure, like, whoa, what did that mean to you that I'm not gathering? What did holding hands mean? Or what did scritching your head mean? Because, you know, there's a level of physical intimacy that I share with my friends. That I'm very touchy. I'm like very like pet everyone. Does that mean that there's something, a level of intimacy now that I crossed a threshold that I didn't know?
Yeah.
Does the, we've discussed this before, like I really like my face touched, and that's a really, really intimate place for me. It doesn't mean that there's a sexual relationship, or but that's a level of trust that I offer the people that I really love, is to touch my face like that. And it could be friends, it could be my mother, probably not my dad, he's not that kind of guy. But definitely people that I have a lot of respect for and people that I feel safe with. And so what does that mean? Yeah.
I want to read what Jay wrote. Jay wrote, when you both want and feel the same, you will magnetize intimacy and good fortune to yourselves and not push it away. Thank you, Jay. And definitely we will read comments and questions and thoughts and experiences from people coming in.
You know, just in the realm of the theme that we're talking about today, is sometimes it's hard to get through the pain to connection, right? And I think that is the piece that the holding on to the story of the pain and is the disconnect that people feed into. And that's the hard place where, can I show up in love and compassion for this person, or am I still going to be a B word?
So I think we're back to the dealing with ex-lovers.
Oh, I'm all over the board here in this whole thought process.
Totally okay. But if you want to get back to the game, we will.
No, you can. It's your. Oh, you have. Oh, so the rules of the game is that you get to answer the same question.
Oh.
So there's a rule. So the question that you ask,
you love finding out rules after you've already.
I know. I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. Okay, so the rules of this game. Okay, the rules of the game are the question that you ask, you get to answer as well. Like the asker gets to wait for the answerer to, and then you get to answer yourself. And really, that's the only rule. Well, don't be mean. Don't be a jerk. Like, there's general human rules, but yeah, those are implied.
Okay. Do you want to answer the question that I asked?
I didn't answer? Yes. The answer is yes. Thanks, Scott. Forgive me.
My answer is yes, too. Absolutely. And I want to acknowledge that there are times that I haven't done that. I have been on the side of when someone really opened at a deeper level of intimacy to me, I got scared. It was a long time ago, but I've done that. But I would say now I'm pretty good at tracking, and it's been a long time since I pulled back when somebody was all in. It's been a long time since I've done that. Certainly long before I got married. So since that time, I would rather be hurt than hurt someone.
I'm glad you're not a sociopath.
Hmm.
My first thought is like, oh, I'm glad you're not a sociopath. Good job.
Wherever you learn that line from, I like the guy already. Um,
Sure like that guy. Okay. What's your biggest red flag?
to another person, like a red flag about Scott.
An inner red flag? Well, I mean, is there a difference between an inner red flag or a
In other words, what's the red flag that somebody would see about me, or a red flag that I would see about someone else?
well, if you're gonna ask, let's go. Hi, Facebook land. I'm just teasing.
So, both,
Yes. Yeah.
both. Okay. I would say the biggest red flag about me is that I'm definitely a workaholic. I always have been. I probably always will be. Um, I can be really intimate in my relationships, and I can go from deep intimacy into my clients or working or building Love Coach Academy or doing whatever I'm doing, making my TV shows, whatever it is. And for some people that really works, and for some people that really doesn't work. Um, and I'm good with transitions. I mean, I'm not somebody that we have sex and 2 minutes later I'm on the phone talking to a client. I mean, I'm big. I understand about transition time, but that I would say that's probably the biggest red flag about Scott to most that I've experienced throughout my life. Um, I would say that's the biggest red flag. Um, the biggest red flag for me about another person is if I see them playing victim. Uh, I I refuse to be in an intimate relationship with someone who plays victim to get their needs met. Now, all of us may have a victim moment, but someone who has a fundamental way of getting their needs met by playing victim, run. Remember Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, "Run, Luke, run."
Well, that
So those are
also
my red flags.
screams codependency as well. It's like, hey, I want to put you in the codependent triangle. You're like,
Well,
oh, the triangle.
yeah, because I'm such a rescuer. I was born on Christmas Day, and I've absolutely fallen into the trap of rescuing. Rescuing the damsel in distress. I did that one multiple times and got the scars to show it.
You're like, oh,
Yeah. So, how about you? What are your red flags both ways?
good question.
Well, it was your question.
I know, and I was prepared to answer my own question. This is how the game plays. I got it. Um, I think my personal biggest red flag for me is, well, okay, I actually want to be really like raw here, so I'm gonna stay with that for a second. My biggest red flag for someone like with someone else is a level of unwillingness to be vulnerable. Like that kind of like, well, what's that? And not in the, like, well, we're hitting a vulnerability threshold, but the level of just unwillingness to connect or unwillingness to meet. And there's of course like the generic ones like violence. Like violence is a pretty big red flag. Someone who's a drug addict, someone who kind of one of this, like someone who doesn't want to go to therapy might be a red flag for me. It's kind of like, it's kind of a turn on when someone says I've been in therapy. I'm like, oh, you have? Hey. For me, a red flag is for someone else, I think, and this has come up multiple times, is that sometimes I can be so embodied, like in my body, that rationalizing something can can be difficult. So dropping into the rationalization, because I'm like here and present and I'm feeling this thing that I'm in. Um, I think that that can make a lot of people feel unsafe. That's the I think the last relationship that I was in, what made him feel unsafe is that I was so in my body and so just like that sometimes my mind wasn't like, I wasn't like, oh, hey, we should probably talk about that thing. I was like, oh, I'm here and my body's here.
Was it not safe for the other person because they weren't in their body the way you were in your body, and so it, it was a painful sacred mirror?
Well, I think that in some way we were both in the, like that person was really in their head and I was really in my body. And when he wanted me to be in my body or in my head, he was in his body. It was just like a really weird interaction. And man, did I want him to be in his body? Woo! Jay says, I feel safe when I'm with a light touch partner and we practice light touch and use the pleasurable sensations to send blessings.
Mm, absolutely. Thank you, Jay, for bringing light touch to our world.
Yeah.
Love Coach Academy, and yeah, light touch is it's kind of really slowing down and really feeling just the touch on the face. Like she said, she loves to have her face touched. Light touch, is slowing down and really being present, really being conscious. And it's a beautiful, beautiful set of tools that Jay has brought into the world. So thank you for that, Jay.
Another, and before we move on, another one for me right off the bat is, do you want children?
Oh yeah.
And that one right off the bat, do you want to get married and do you want to have children? Like what does, relationship mean to you? And those are actually, I mean, sometimes it's not an, if that person wants children, I am like, whoop, you're an amazing person and I love you and I'm not my department. You want to have dogs and maybe a ranch with a bunch of chickens and horses and cows and camels and I don't know, whatever, we could talk, but
Yeah. And I respect, I think it's for people that are really clear that they want children. Boy, yeah, get that question out there. Because if you really know you want to have children, why waste time with someone who doesn't?
that's the biggest regret I have in my 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 with my previous fiance is that he really wanted to have children and we spent 5 years together,
Mm.
and I feel like I held that parking spot or that spot where he could have used that 5 years developing a relationship and a family with someone else. And I have a big regret there still, because I care for him and I care for him getting what he wants in this lifetime. And so if I would have known, you know, I would have probably not gotten into a deeper relationship. I was very young though. I thought maybe that was a possibility.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So that kind of can give us a way to come back to the topic that thousands of people no doubt are coming to watch: how to deal with exes. Does your remorse of realizing he really wanted something that you came to the conclusion you, at least at the time, didn't want, how does that impact how you relate to him? Is there guilt? Is there remorse? And does that get in the way? Does it make you want to connect and express the remorse? Or how does it influence you
Hmm.
as it relates to that person now?
You know, there's an I've done a amends process with myself about my own guilt about it. Like, hey, you were young, you didn't know, and I've chosen as one of the intentions of my remorse or my amends process is to really choose a partner who doesn't want to have children.
Mhm.
And with him, I have had some experiences or some conversations where it was like, I took responsibility for how I showed up in the world with him and my impact on him.
Mhm.
On how, I was 26 when we got together, and 27 I was like, yeah, maybe. And then I hit my Saturn return and was like, oh, I'm not actually that person, am I? And as I get older, I'm just not really the mom type. I mean, I can't blame myself for being young and not understanding what my needs and wants and what I was going to need in a few years. But he had been clear for a long time. So for me, wanting to show up and being like, hey, love, I acknowledge that the time, like my unknowing the truth about my internal wants, needs, and values has impacted you in this way. Do I want to reach out? I would love to have a conversation about that. Does it make me want to? Mm, I know that it wouldn't be in his. If he says, I would love to talk about some things and get closure, then yes. But I'm not going to impress my own wants and needs for closure on him. Like, that's not consensual
Yeah.
conversations. So, how about you?
About that particular question about children.
Not exactly about children, just if you have some regret or remorse about something, does it draw you further into wanting to connect with them? But and the other question of, is that the highest form of connection that you want with that person? Do you want to show up in remorse and regret, or do you want to show up in another way when you get to talk to them?
Well, I certainly would never say it's the highest form of connection. So right off the bat, no, not the highest form of connection. Um, but sometimes a necessary form of connection. I mean, there definitely are people that need an apology.
Oh yeah.
And as love coach Scott, I'm not real big on apology. I don't promote it so much. I promote mutual understanding, understanding why you did whatever it is you did, and mutual understanding of how it impacted the person who felt hurt by it. I find that that's more powerful than apology. Can fall into right wrong. There's some traps with forgiveness and apology. Um, that being said, I recognize that some people really have a mindset of I can't open my heart to you or talk to you until you apologize. And okay, that's out there, and it's frequent and it's common. Um,
It is common. And and I think that there's a level of more than just a verbal apology, right? Is there changed behavior? Is there a new mindset? Um, if I show up in my new mindset, coming to this person, and I'm still wanting to play victim or play savior or play perpetrator, like that's not going to serve anyone. Especially, I mean, so if I'm showing up in remorse, that's actually kind of a victim space, right?
yeah, well, I can make it about you, right? I feel so bad. So now instead of me taking care of you, you're going to take care of me, right? It's like I've seen it used that way, right?
You feel so bad,
Oh my
Scott.
God, I feel so bad that I did that.
Oh,
Oh, oh, oh, please stop me from hitting myself. Let's make it all about me now,
oh my
right?
god, I've totally done that.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah!
She writes, I'll have to remember that one. Or so in Love Coach Academy, we teach that there are the 6 Ds. Hopefully, I remember them all, or Trish will help me remember them. And these are the things that we do to not fully be present when we've made a choice that's had a hurtful impact on someone we care about. We defend ourselves, we deny it, we deflect it. She acknowledged a little while ago she was deflecting. There's defend, deny, deflect, diminish. Oh, it's not that bad. We distract. Look, a UFO. And we dominate, right? We get bigger. You think You're going to talk about that? Okay, now we're going to talk about, and we, you know, which is kind of a combination of deflection and domination. We get bigger, we become a bigger reptile. And those are all things I've done, probably you've done, and probably all of us have done. And so it's important to notice, to remember those and go, oh, shoot, I'm deflecting right now, which she owned a few minutes ago, right? Oh, God, I'm in denial. Oh, wow, I'm actually trying to diminish that it wasn't that bad because I'm not comfortable with your discomfort. Your discomfort is too uncomfortable for me, so I need to diminish it. I need to, you know, or deny it altogether, right? So those are just the 6 Ds to be aware of.
I just want to read a couple of these comments coming in.
Yeah, yeah, please do.
So my mom is here. I love there's just some conversations about jealousy and what was it intimidating? Oh, talking to my ex, was it intimidating? Well, it definitely gave me a rise. That was absolutely like, but dropping back into the empathy tool that Scott so graciously taught me is like, okay, what's the story running? What's my feelings and what are my wants and needs? And really the want to connect is always there for me. So Heather says a guy I dated once just apologized through Messenger about having a bad view of therapy, and I'm a therapist. Now he sees the value in therapy. Good point, Trish, on going to therapy as a plus of being an open-minded person. And I find most of my clients want someone to be flexible on having kids. And, you know, a lot of people my age in this 33 to 45 age group definitely want children.
I'm also now looking at the comments. I love that Radiance had 167 questions. Shauna was impressed that you want camels. Heather had a good question. What kind of porn do you watch? That's it. That'll lead to some dynamic conversation.
Well, I have a running list that I like to share with my friends.
Is that true?
That's totally true, yes. I'm like, well, I mean, if I can save my friends from searching the vast experience of the internet for things that are actually good and connecting, why don't I just save them the issues? Of course, my mom says she always loved her face touched in the beginning of her life, all the way to now. Yeah, she trained me well. You know, and I think that how we treat others, regardless of whether they're your ex or your new partner or someone you're dating, it really is about how you treat yourself, right? And how honest you're willing to be with yourself. You know, I know that we're at an hour and there's this thing coming up for me that's like rolling up and I'm like people, when they start dating again, they get that excitement and then that's when a lot of insecurity might roll up. Insecurity, and it's not even about the other person, it's totally internal. And that this is, I've noticed in some of my friends and even myself, like, oh, they didn't text back in 37 minutes and 16 seconds. This means and I was just kind of thinking about that right there, like, huh, what, we're such meaning making machines that it's almost, yeah, going back to the relationship with oneself is like, what is that? And go into that look right there.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Well, two things. I went on the first date that I've been on since October recently. And I was really nervous. I mean, I really was. I was like nervous and I had all sorts of stuff going on. And I was very blessed that the person that I was seeing gave me a really nice hug and helped me to relax my nervous system. So I can relate to that. I mean, and I'm actually an extremely confident guy, but I was definitely nervous before that first date. So I just want to own that and acknowledge that. And as far as like how we make meaning out of things, absolutely. As Trish knows, I have I have Scott's commandments. And the first commandment is, thou shalt not react to your own interpretation of another person. Because that's what causes almost all misery. As someone who all day long, I'm working with couples and people, and almost all fights, almost all crap starts with somebody reacting to an interpretation of, oh, you only sent 2 hearts and not 3 hearts, right? You looked at me sideways, right? You waited 30 minutes to return my text message, right? And we assign all this meaning, and then we react to our interpretation of it. And that's what causes almost all fights, and almost all of it is unnecessary. Oh wow, I'm really longing for her to get back to me quicker. That's fair. Oh wow, I really would love to get some little hearts with a text. Oh wow, I'd really like for him to call back soon. That's cool. But when we react and assign an interpretation that it means he's a jerk, or that there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with him or her, not useful.
I would love to do a dating skills class with you, Scott. Like
Yeah.
how to manage insecurities while dating. And I think that that would be really helpful for anybody who's single in the world. And we are also in a really freaking weird time in the world where dating the dating has shifted. Not only did dating shift years ago, you know, as we got into app-based dating, but now that a lot of us are in quarantine and not getting our physical touch needs met, or you know, like the aspect of breathing and heartbeat connection with someone. I would love to have a class, create a class with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it. So you were here first. Scott and Trish are going to teach some sort of a class, webinar, something. We'll figure out how many hours it's going to take to properly do it uh, on dating. And Jay said yes. We already got our first registrant. Thank you,
All
Jay.
right, thanks, Jay.
I had made a mental note on our original topic about dealing with the ex, and then we'll wrap up because we're already past our hour. When we want something from another person, it's always a good idea to ask 2 questions. Are they capable of even doing what we want them to do? And if we know that they're capable of it, what would they need to be willing? So, as you're thinking about your exes and you're thinking about how you want to relate to them, are they capable of relating the way that you'd like based on your experience of them? Sometimes you'll know the answer, sometimes you won't. But if you are pretty confident they are capable, what would they need to be willing? And usually what they would need is to feel safe. Now, what safety means to them is up to them. We all have very different ideas of what safety means. I worked with a couple today that are kind of coming back together after having a big break, and it was all about safety, what they each need to feel safe to come back into connection with each other. So that's kind of my final closing thought for the night. And I'll turn it back over to Trish.
My closing thought on communicating with your ex is really remembering to see the divinity in them, to see yourself in that person when you want to talk to them, or even when you know that it's not the right time, to listen to that intuition and not press your agenda. That what Heather said was, I'll wait for divine timing. And yeah, being gentle. Like, just be gentle with your ex, because it's, again, not just about you, it's about the other person and their perspective as well. And just being gentle, kind, loving, compassionate. And if you can't be that way, don't talk to them. Just don't.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you, Trish. I love doing this show with you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you those watching the replay, which is the majority of people who will watch this show. And if you enjoyed the show, hey, please share it. Pop it on your wall. Pop it in a group that you're part of. We love meeting new people. And if you're interested, Love Coach Academy, we do 2 or 3 webinars every day on relationships. Trish has a terrific show she does every Thursday morning with
Oh,
her friend Dawn, all about self-love. It's the Self-Love Show, Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock Pacific time. Check it out. It's a great, great show.
we have 2 tools every week for deeper self love and being able to communicate and process through the things that are holding you back from the relationships that you want.
It's a great show. I watch it every week when I can, which is mostly. I kind of build my schedule when I'm watching the show.
Aw.
And you can go back and watch replays. Just go to the Love Coach Academy page, click videos, and you'll see all the videos of all the shows we've done. Heidi and Timothy and Recovery Talk and all these amazing shows. And of course, every Saturday night, we've got our big show, Saturday Night Live for the Global Peace Tribe, which I host and produce. And tomorrow we've got Neil Donald Walsh, the author of Conversations with Conversations with God.
Same.
And he's cool. He's great. And we've got Tom Perkins. It's all about unity. So, okay, the dogs are going nuts barking. So
I love that they're just
they're
so
all
happy.
excited. I think they know that the show's over and Scott's going to take them on a walk. Like, come on,
Thank you all
Dad,
for
it's that
joining.
time.
Thank you all for joining.
Uh,
And thank you, Scott, for being so awesome and honest and vulnerable.
Thank you. I love you, Trish. Love all of you. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful weekend. Watch our show tomorrow night. All right, take care. Bye-bye, everybody.